Welcome to the ClassCast podcast, where philosophy, policy, pedagogy, and people come together in honest, purposeful conversations about improving school and education for our students and our communities. I'm your host, Ryan Tibbens, an award-winning English teacher, speaker, tutor, and podcast host in Northern Virginia. You can listen and subscribe to the ClassCast podcast on all major streaming services, on YouTube, and at classcastpodcast.com. Ladies and gentlemen, class is in session.
Go for it, Ryan. What you got?
All right, so it's a question, because I was thinking there's like a not with all these comments, but there's a common thread between a lot of them, right? And that what we're talking about is doing things that are essentially more like real life and less like school, if we're allowed to make a distinction between real life and school. Which
right.
I hate that we can do that, but that that I think everybody at least knows what I mean, right?
Yes.
In some of the early episodes of my podcast, I talked with people, and even last summer, I had some conversations about like unschooling, this sort of idea where people just sort of pull their kids out of school, and then you're just like, you're in the community, you read some books, we go to some museums, we do whatever. And and I have concerns about it. I don't think it's for everyone. And I don't think, I think there's a certain degree of privilege that says you have a parent who can stay home and help the kid, and you have a community that has the resources that can facilitate all this. But if you think about like the sneaker idea, some of the GPS stuff, some of the creating a game, the Batsheva talking about like having the same group of kids for multiple years in a row, because you're at at a private school where you can ask and you can get some flexible scheduling and the kids can be a part of this. Like, a lot of the ideas that we just heard were really about ways to take things like it's in school and then to make it seem as little like school as possible. And so so it's a question to whoever wants to play with it, but like, if we think carefully about a lot of the innovative ideas we've heard today, and maybe we've been hearing a lot of over the last year or two, if the best ideas we have about how to make school better are to make school less like school, then why don't we just go big and say, let's do like tear it down and do the whole thing over? Like there's a lot of arguments for incremental change. And I do this myself. We have real estate, we have funding, we have public support. Like, you don't want to throw those things away. You don't want to alienate a public that generally supports a public school system. That being said, if you listen to the coolest ideas about what kids really learn from, they're completely foreign to what a regular sort of normal school experience is. Where do we go from here? Like, what are we supposed to do with all these cool ideas? Like, I feel like we're paddling upstream in a way we almost don't have to.
Yeah. This is literally my life's work. When you talk about ripping the school system apart from the threads, my podcast used to be called School Sucks, but I changed it not because I believe that less, but because there was already a School Sucks podcast that was on break when I started, and then they came back, and I was like, I don't want to get into any podcast beef, so I changed my podcast to Schoolish. But I changed it to Schoolish because, I think you're onto something, Ryan, in that like where I envision school is actually that there are so many options. And some of the best ones make people go, is that really a school? At the school we built in Austin, it's called Alpha. It was built in an old concert venue called LZR and La Zona Rosa. And we would literally have parents come visit, and they would go, you don't know what I've done in this building. I cannot send my child here. We had a parent, no joke, that was like, I think my kid was conceived in this room. Right?
Wow.
So just like, there's still a bar in the building.
To be completely fair, I think there've been at least a couple of kids conceived in some of the schools I've worked in. So just to be fair, let's be honest.
That. You're right. There have been kids conceived. Any school that's more than 20 years old, there's been someone conceived in that.
Right. Some people don't need a good place, But I say that to say, like, I really do think we should rethink every tiny aspect about education, even the word school. Right. When we built the school in Austin, we called it Alpha and not Alpha Academy or Alpha School for a reason, because we wanted, when students showed up or when they talked about it with their friends, we wanted them to think like, this is something other than what you know to be a school. Yeah. And the last thing I'll say is I think a lot of people, when you start talking about innovation, The public school system has done a really good job of training the general public to believe that the system is needed as is. And I actually I deeply believe in public school. I believe in free education. Public school changed my life. I went to public school from K to 12. I didn't have an option. My mom was a single mother, and she was a single mother on a teacher's salary. And so, raising 3 crazy boys. So the public school system literally saved my life. And I am committed to literally pulling it apart at the seams and stitching it back together with all these pieces that we find. And I think we have to look outside of education. We have to look at insurance companies. You want to talk about gamification? The best place to learn about gamification right now is an app called Root. It's an insurance app that gamifies almost the way you drive. They don't do as great a job about it. There's a better one called Loop that is coming. Shout out to Loop. Y'all should go check out ridewithloop.com. They're coming. Yeah.
And we just need to change it to OOP. We just want to make it OOP because we just stick with the theme. Get rid of that now. Just OOP.
Right. Okay. I think that's also another app. But Loop's gamification is going to be dope because I'm going to be working with it. But anyway, I think you're right, Ryan, that we do have to pull the system apart. But the one thing I'll say is that some of these options are not necessarily only reserved for those with privilege or not necessarily as expensive as many people think. And there are also just some sacrifices. Like my wife and I are very transparent about this. We homeschool and we do as close to what unschooling is. Like we're using apps for everything, and everything is taught through, asking questions, discussion, designing projects, all of that. And apps, mainly, it's not necessarily because we think that's the best. We do think it's the best, but it's also because like neither one of us wants to do the teaching. I'm like, look, I do this all day. I'm not trying to go downstairs and talk to y'all about. My wife is like, I'm not trying to. But I will say, like, we're very open about this. We were on welfare at one point because that was the choice we made, right? Like I changed the trajectory of my career as a sacrifice so that I could school that way. And I know that not everybody's willing to do that. And I know that we're blessed in ways that even allow that to be possible for us. But as long as there is breath in my lungs, I will be trying to build those solutions, those hybrid solutions, those school solutions, so that there is a neighborhood place. Like we're working with, we're trying to work in Washington, D.C., Ward 6, 7, and 8, trying to build a McDonald's-sized virtual learning hub every square mile of that 33 square mile radius, so that you can walk and plug into a community of learners anywhere you go, simply because the charter schools, they just ain't cutting it over there, right? So I think there's a lot of wacky solutions. My call to action is not actually with any of us. It is to these. I was ranting about this the other day, and this is the last thing I'm going to say. I keep seeing these big entrepreneurs and businessmen say things like the K through 12 system sucks, and I'm like, yeah, you're so correct. Really appreciate it. Now, where's the check? Gary Vaynerchuk, like Gary V, Mark Cuban. You keep saying
that's real. That's real.
Yeah, right.
That's
like
real.
Where's the money? Because they haven't.
Yep. Yeah. And I want to throw something out. And I think, Ryan, thank you so much for that point. I think one of the things that doesn't get called out enough when we start talking about because what we were all talking about is an abolitionist perspective on education. And there's a whole lot of folks who are way smarter than me who are doing this work. So if you haven't read Dr. Bettina L. Love, if you haven't followed and supported the Abolitionist Teaching Network, if you haven't looked at the work of Quetzal Education, like there are Black and brown women-led organizations who are having these conversations, right? And who have these kinds of visions. And so what we're really talking about, and I just pulled up a tweet from my friend Marilyn Zuniga. She says, a school is a school is a school. All my years working in different school contexts, I've realized the truth. A school with a social justice vision and mission is still a school. U.S. schooling is a colonial project, and it must be abolished. So what we're talking about when we talk about U.S. American education is we're talking about white supremacist settler colonialism. That is what this is an outgrowth of. That is why it was developed. And so when we start talking about abolishing this, then we're actually talking about something real, right? And I have a secondary podcast kind of project that I'm working on called Habitually Disruptive. And the idea is that you can't, it's very difficult to just burn things down, right? The public education system has been with us in this form for over a century. It's very resistant to our anger and our feelings, right?
Yeah.
So what you have to do is find the little places to disrupt. And I would also point people to the work at the Escuela Verde. My friend Zainab used to be on the leadership group there. And Escuela Verde they're in Milwaukee. This school is everything that y'all talk about. So Mike, when you're talking about the partnerships with the community and businesses, when we talk about doing something real, when we talk about something that is a direct challenge to the white supremacist industrial capitalist like reason for education, I mean, that school is really doing it. But yeah, I'm with it. And so it's like looking for the disruptions, and and that might have a cost to it. And Mike, I'm glad you pointed that out. And Ryan, thank you for posing that question, because I do think that in my work, and I'm not successful at it every day, in my work, I'm looking for ways that my actions can eventually lead to the collapse of the education system as we know it.
Yeah. I was going to say that the thing that with Ryan that it hit me, and it's not the first time it's hit me, but schools, they are very, very similar to prisons, and they're very, very similar to the military. It's just so institutional even when it comes to the way that they're built, when it comes to the food that they serve. I mean,
school is prison, right? That's a different conversation.
I know, but there's so many similarities that there really are, very, very, very similar. And so that's what I was going to see. And I don't know how, and no one, I don't know. It's tough. Like Gerardo said, I think that it's good to do it from both ends, where what we can do from the inside and change things in our individual classrooms or in our individual district or in our individual department, whatever your ability to affect change is. It might be just inside your classroom. You might be able to affect your whole school. You might be able to affect your whole district, but we can do that simultaneously while other people are, working from the outside in. And I think that it takes both of those things doing that, so that when it gets torn apart, we'll be there to, if we're not the terror aparters, we'll be there to stitch it back together. You know what I mean? And we'll be prepared to go, hey, guess what? This is how you wanted it. Well, I've already been doing that for like 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is. So thank you for like tearing down this wall. So now I can do what I was doing out in the open. My
greatest educator was hip hop. And so the thing that I think about is, am I an industry artist or am I an artist in the industry? And so that's the, and I'm both on different days, depending on what it is, because again, disruption is not something that is easy. It's not something that we do perfectly all the time. Sometimes we are tools of the system. The system's really strong like that,
Yeah. And that actually reminds me when you use that analogy. And by the way, at some point, Gerardo, I need you to make like a playlist for me, because I haven't gotten past Run DMC, so I know there's other people that made hip hop after Run DMC. But,
probably
at least two people.
Which one is Run and which one is DMC?
My name's McDaniel's, not McDonald's. The Ryan's Hotels, but the burgers are Ronald's. But anyway, that's all I know.
Oh.
Thank you. But what I was going to say is there are actors that they go, one for the studio, one for me, one for the studio, one for me. And sometimes as teachers, we have to do that. Here's a lesson for the establishment. Here's a lesson for me and the kids. And sometimes we have to find that balance so that we can, I'm going to teach the standard today. Tomorrow, I'm going to teach what I think we should teach, and kind of, and sometimes you can blend those, and sometimes you can do what Mike was talking about and do that. But sometimes you have to kind of go, okay, Today I'm gonna do something for you. Tomorrow we're gonna do something for us. Yeah,
we brought in hip hop. Sorry, this is my last thing. So the roots, like in Questlove's book, Mo Meta Blues, he talks about how he and Black Thought will have these collaborations where they're like, okay, this album is going to be commercially successful, right? Some booty shaking, some like dance music, right? But then this album is going to be the real work, and so that's a really interesting
Nicolas
thing.
Cage strategy.
Yes.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, it's why the Roots are on Jimmy Fallon. And I'm still mad about like them being referred to as Jimmy Fallon's house band. I was ready to throw things this morning.
Me too. Oh my gosh, me too. It makes
there's only there's only slight connotations to the word house, right? There's only
yeah. Jimmy Fallon is the Roots halftime entertainment.
Exactly. He's our opening act.
You are the filler between when we get to play. That you're welcome, Jimmy.
That's right. Yeah.
All right.
I just wanted to say this one thing because I know somebody sort of hinted at this before, but I think one of the killers of innovation and changing education and really recreating it and whatever is this idea of, well, it works for you, but right. And so that can be what a teacher says to another teacher. It can be what a school says to another school. It can be what public schools say to innovative independent schools and what they might be doing. That's you know, it will work for your students, but not for mine, or, you know,
what I've learned recently, that the how about-isms, right? Are you familiar with how about-ism? Batsheva?
I'm not sure. Tell me.
Okay. So it's,
but how about
break down how about-ism for us.
Right. Like
how about this? What about
what about a kid who really likes Eurocentric curriculum? Like what about that?
Well, so but here's part of the problem we're running into though. Like all of those questions lead back to the same thing we started with, was that like, what's something innovative that works for you and your students? And it's honestly it's a problem with the way we run. You know, you said like public schools it's like the military, it's like a prison, it's like whatever. You have to scale it. It has to be scalable, right? Like I don't know if you guys watched the movie about like McDonald's with Michael, what's his name? Michael Keaton.
Right.
Yeah. And so
boyfriend is in that.
Yeah, and so they do this whole thing, but the entire point is that you have this like consistent plan and consistent like process and this whole thing. And when you think about a public school system, at least at a county or division level, and probably at a state level, that's what people are trying to do, right? You're trying to present something that is going to work pretty well for most people in every situation. And so we're talking about something that is incredibly utilitarian. And then we have this cool conversation about what works for us as teachers or works for individual groups of students in a specialized setting. And if somebody's going to turn around and say, yeah, but what about, or that's not going to work with my kids. Okay, then be more creative and find something that will work with your kids. Like the idea that that there's a silver bullet or that everybody has to find the same solution is insane. And the fact that you think you have to do that, and this is actually I've got some upcoming podcast episodes about this, but like we're creating like school for dummies, and I don't mean the students are dummies, I mean the teachers are dummies. Like,
yes,
we're doing things that essentially like there's this sense that we can't trust individual teachers, so we have to sort of lay down like, here's this curriculum, here are these methods, hey, we're all going to do this innovative thing, but we all do it together in the same pace at the same time. How innovative is that really? Like if you can roll it out in such a way. And so I just think that sometimes you have to have the confidence to say like, I'm going to do this thing that works for the kids in the room today. And maybe it won't work next year. And like that, tough luck. Like that's my job to figure it out. And if you can't trust me as the teacher to figure it out, then you shouldn't be paying me to be the teacher in the first place. Like you need better people in the room so you don't feel the need to dummy proof everything. Like that's my biggest frustration.
All this money to be a teacher.
Yeah. I don't know. We're dummy proofing things in ways that you know, it's horribly regressive is where we're at. I don't know.
I think it's really important that we bear in mind that we are preparing students for a future that we don't know, we don't understand. We're equipping them for jobs that aren't there yet. And actually, I was having a conversation with one of my podcast guests about the fact that actually, in the future, computers are going to be able to do all sorts of things that we've actually been teaching our children to do for years in classrooms. Yes. And what we need to start considering is equipping our children for things that computers won't be able to do, because those are going to be the roles that they're going to have to be the roles that they'll carry out. And I think that's really, it's turning things on its head. And no offense, Mealey, but computers are going to be really good at maths.
Oh, definitely.
So
oh my goodness.
Actually,
90% of what I teach can be done without me. Yeah, I've used more computers more and more because and it's just like, no, let's just do it this way. Let's just.
And if I could get back every day that I've spent being taught how to write a bibliography or correct my spelling, I'd be such a happier person.
Yeah. Oh. And actually, we need to be teaching those soft skills. We need to be teaching about communication and interaction and all of those things that, computers aren't able to do.
I was going to say the top thing that we need to be teaching, I think, is critical thinking.
Yes.
Absolutely,
Because
Yes.
absolutely.
that is the biggest thing that's
Yeah.
missing. You can see the results of the lack of that from the last 20, 30, 40 years of education, because adults are clueless how to think critically about
Which page of the textbook is critical thinking?
Exactly. Well, if you were taking notes, I was actually thinking about this morning about how, teachers who are still having their students take notes, like, well, you need to learn how to take notes on this thing. I'm like, no, you don't. Like, that's not actually a skill you need anymore, right? It's like, you can find out, so you don't need to be lectured anymore at all, because people can just find that stuff out. What you need to show them is, how do you find the information? How do you critically look at the information that's out there to see what's real? How do you question it? Question everything. Right. Like, how do you ask good questions? Students have no idea how to ask good questions. It's like my biggest thing. So
yeah, right. I'll say this. I don't want us to miss. I think Ryan made a really important point about scale, and it's like the public school system is really obsessed with scale. I say public school, the traditional school system, private schools and charter schools too. Charter schools, more than traditional public schools, are obsessed with scale.
Yeah,
to where they water the product down. And what you see when businesses, and this is my greatest hope, is that teachers do less of this, right? Less of us being in the same room sharing ideas, and more of us inviting other people along with us, right? Like, where are the startup CEOs, and where are whenever I hire for positions in education, I want to talk to a stay-at-home mom. I want to talk to a failed startup CEO, like somebody who's tried to start 3 things and they've all failed for some reason, and they know exactly why. I want to talk to people outside, like, give me a plumber who's like, I think I want to go teach, right? Like, I want to talk to people from other industries, because that's how you learn what's going to be important in the future, right? Like, and what sort of like just been summed up is like the need to be more human, which is like absolutely so. Like, I think learning to learn is more important than any life skill. Like, if you know how to learn, I met a guy who he built a headset that allows you to control things with your brainwaves.
Ooh.
He's legally blind. His name is Zubian Wuta. He's legally blind. He joined the military, went blind, so he started going blind. And at the point where he was legally blind and he could no longer be in the military, he's like, well, now what do I do? So he enrolls in neuroscience courses, and he basically taught himself neuroscience, and has built all of these products using his VA benefits, right? Like, afterwards. And he was like, Mike, the most important thing in my life has been that I know how to read and that I know how to learn. I know where I can find any piece of information. I know I can piece together. But I think the point that I want to make that,
by the way, I think that's the next Avenger origin story. Just
basically, basically, if he starts working at like Raytheon Technologies, he's going to be the next Iron Man. But the thing that Ryan mentioned is basically like, this is something that I fundamentally believe about building EdTech, and I tell this to EdTech founders in any business. When you're small, or when you're doing something on a small scale, you should do everything you can that does not scale, that you cannot do when you scale, because that's what creates these really special experiences that people feel like they can't get anywhere else. Like, it's really popular for people to rag on WeWork because of how the story like sort of like is ending. But one of the things that WeWork did so well is that every one of them you went to, it was always different, because their community managers did something that you, like in DC, they did something for you that they couldn't do in New York City, and that they couldn't do in Austin, Texas. And you felt like, oh, this is just for me. So if we can do that for students, like, don't worry about down the hall. Yeah, don't get in a little group and everybody copy the same innovation. Like, figure out exactly what your students need and want, and do what you can do that doesn't necessarily scale. And you'll have, and I'll also say, more things scale than we think. If we're just willing to get uncomfortable and do the work, more things scale than we think. So, great point, Ryan.
Okay. So I know we could do this for forever. We could do the whole 8 hours probably like this, honestly. But
it's literally what all of our podcasts are.
What's that?
It's literally what all of our podcasts are. Yeah.
Yeah. So literally we could probably more than 8 hours. So please, guys, whether you're watching this live or you're listening to this as we release it as a podcast and see the stuff in the notes, follow these people, listen to their podcast, hear all these ideas, digest them, share them, and all that kind of stuff. But we promised we were going to play the admin colleague student game.
Hold on. I think you just invented a new app for Mike. Can you do that again?
Yes. That could be your new app there.
Mike, trademark that. That's
trademark.
Yes. So we're going to start with, I know Toria is only here for this roundtable. She's not here for any of the other events in the Edupodlooza, so I want to make sure she plays this now. Some of the other guys will be back later.
Right now it's February. I don't really know how the time differences work.
Yeah, no, basically we're still, it's November actually, but yeah, it's close enough.
Oh wow.
Yes. But anyway, I know that like other people have other opportunities to play this game because we might not get to everybody in the next 20 minutes. We might, I don't know. So Toria, I'm going to start, and then
I'm good on missing out on games though, because I'm really useless at them.
Tudisco, you're going to pick out the next volunteer/victim while I do this with Toria. Okay, so here's the way the game works, Toria. Okay, so it's kind of like, I don't know if you're familiar with, but you may be, they probably played over there in England as well, the game Kill, Marry, and then something, I use the word fornicate, but we know what we're talking about.
Oh.
Are you familiar with that game?
Yes.
Okay.
I've never played it. But I've seen it on television shows.
Instead, it's admin, colleague, student, where you have to choose to make them either your administrator, someone that you're going to have as a colleague, or someone that you're going to be your student. Okay?
Yeah.
And so I'm going to give you 3 people. So would you like Muppets, superheroes, or
superheroes?
Okay.
Let's go superheroes.
Let's go superheroes here. So I just had them here. I'm scrolling through these things. Okay. So you've got, are you familiar with the Marvel?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Love Marvel.
So you've got Ant-Man, Doctor Strange, and Captain Marvel. And you have to make one of them your admin, one of them your colleague, and one of them your student. Go ahead.
Oh, God.
And you can explain why. We just lost 2 people.
Right. So my student would be Ant-Man, because I just find Ant-Man, yes, he just needs to learn a lot, basically. When it comes to superheroes, he's just not got it down pat compared to some of the others. The others are yes, streets ahead of him. So Ant-Man, definitely student. A colleague would have to be Dr. Strange. He would be my science, he'd be teaching the science department.
Mm-hmm.
And then my admin would have to be Captain Marvel, because Captain Marvel is the superhero that I just think is absolutely brilliant. And I would absolutely love to work under her.
Awesome. Fantastic. Okay. Well, some people are taking a break because of my mouth is broken and it's only hour 2. So some people are taking a break because they are participating in a lot of the Edupodlooza. I didn't anticipate that when I started the game, but we just roll with the punches. So Tudisco, your choices as to who you choose next are relatively limited. So go ahead.
Well, why don't we throw the same question to Ryan and Sandrine?
Yeah.
Sandrine, you go ahead.
No, but Tudisco, but give them new Tudisco, give them new people to choose from, though.
Do you think we'll burn out our list, though?
No.
Okay. Well, hold on. Sandrine, would your answers be different? Would your answers be different?
They would be.
Okay, go ahead.
Go on then, Sandrine.
I think I would put, oh man, this is kind of tough, but I'm thinking I would put Captain Marvel as the student.
Really?
Yeah, because I think she also has a lot to discover. And maybe looking at things in different ways and learning.
But do you not feel she learned quite a bit over the course of the film? She learned quite a bit, so she moved on incredibly far from where she was initially.
She learned, yes. Yeah, she did.
She would be the best student Like if you're trying to make your own job easy, make her the student. Like that's because she's gonna play along pretty well.
Okay.
I don't know.
Imagine
I
she
think
get in trouble for beating up
at
bullies.
Some
Like-
point, yeah, she's gonna rebel at some point. It's not a 100%, but that's where I would put her. I think I would keep the same colleague. I think I would, just because I love him and I would want to work with him. Then I could talk to him a lot. And I'd put Ant-Man as the admin because he's crazy enough that he will go with any crazy idea that we have. And so anything innovate, that's kind of where I'm going, really. It all revolves around him. I'm putting him as admin because any crazy idea I want to go and try, he'd be like, what the hell? Sure, let's do it. Let's see what happens.
It's good. You know, honestly, the only one that I'm completely set on is that Dr. Strange has to be the colleague, because he would be the most impossible student, right? Because he's always going to know better than you. And he'd be a terrible admin because he also always knows better than you.
Oh, his observations be brutal.
So like he has to be the coworker where I can just be like, all right, cool, man, go in your room and do your thing. You can't put him in either of the other places because he's insufferable in either one of those roles. We could argue about flipping the other two.
But no one
wants
Strange's
Dr.
room
Strange
because they wouldn't want to be there.
But
unless they really like him, and then they'll love being there. Like that's a love or hate. I'm just saying, like, I don't want that guy telling me how to do my job. And if we're being really honest about it, he's smart enough to figure it out on his own. He doesn't really need me as a teacher.
But this is why you want him, though, because then in your post observation, he could walk through all the different permutations with you of your lesson and go, well, see, if you had done this, then this would have turned out. And then, no, what if you had done this and done this? And he could walk you through.
Man. And halfway through that, I start throwing hands like,
I'd have an
But he would
anxiety
do
attack
that during the observation, and you would see it, and you're like, oh, I am screwing this so badly.
Yeah.
And he knows what I should have done, and it's going to take me however long to figure that one out. Too much pressure.
You're bombing the observation, and then you find out it's all just a spelly cast in a mirror dimension, and none of it really happened, and now you know how you might fail, and that's in your mind.
Yeah, I'm like you can argue the other two, but nobody wants to put Doctor Strange above or below here. Like,
So Ryan, where would you put the other two?
I don't know. I liked your answer a lot, and then Sandrine stepped in, and now I'm like, now I like her answer a lot. I think, as it turns out, I just think that Ant-Man is like the easiest one of all of them to work with. So I want him to be my boss because he doesn't care what I do, and I want him to be my student because he's adventurous enough to play along. But no, I would, if I had to pick, Captain Marvel would be the admin, because there's a clear like sense of purpose. Like that's all I really ask of people. And if anyone who listens to the podcast, you hear like over and over, I go back to like, why are we doing this? Like, we can disagree. And if you have a clear vision, you have a clear sense of purpose, and you're making decisions in accordance with that purpose, I can play along even when I disagree. But when someone flip-flops, or they're not entirely sure what they're doing, or they're making decisions just to make someone else happy, and I never get to talk to that person, like, I personally have a lot of trouble with that. Like, we all need to know what we're trying to do, and then we can make good decisions about how to do it. So I would put Captain Marvel and the admin because she's purposeful and clear. And I would put Ant-Man in the classroom because it would be a lot of fun. But as I already said, Dr. Strange is not going to be easy to work with in any of the other capacities. So I'll take him as the colleague who throws some cool ideas at me once in a while. And then I get to go in my room and not have to have that as either oversight or, whatever. I like both of your answers. So I'm torn, but I am dead set. Dr. Strange cannot be my principal or my student.
Can I ask an extension question?
Yes.
Which of those three would you like to have as a teacher? If you could choose what, you have to have one. You can't not have one. You have to have one.
Dr. Strange. If I was a student, who would I want to be my teacher?
Yeah.
I'd want Dr. Strange.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd want Ant-Man because I was a really lazy student, and I know I can get him off on tangents. Nice. He'd be the teacher. I'd be like, yo, man, just bring up the quantum realm, and he'll be talking for like 30 minutes. We won't even have the test today.
Yeah, no, I as the student, I want someone teaching me who I am very confident is smarter than I am, and who's confident in what he's doing. And he might be overconfident at times, but yeah, I would take him as my teacher. But that's the same reason I want him as my teacher is the reason I don't want him in the other roles when I'm a teacher next door.
See, and we're talking, I'm university level, so I'm having to figure out which one of those, where am I going? Because as a high school student, yeah, I'm on board with Ant-Man. Like, and I came from a French school system, so A's didn't exist. So yeah, I'm down with Ant-Man. Now I'm at the university in the US. You better believe I want Doctor Strange because I want my money's worth.
There you go.
That's right.
And again,
That's a good
French
point.
mindset. And through my whole schooling, all my universities, well, not all of it because I had some in France, but all of my diplomas come from the US. And I was telling that to my daughter yesterday. I was so upset with all of my professors or instructors who were phoning it in. They were like, we are here. Oh, well, we're leaving 30 minutes early today. We're leaving an hour early today. Class canceled. And everybody was like, yeah. And I'm like, no, I just paid $2,000 for this class. If I'm lucky, I want
the only class I ever wanted canceled was Friday before 10 a.m. Like I want every class. I could count in 4 years of undergrad. I could count on these fingers how many classes I missed. Like I went in ill, tired, whatever. Like I'm paying for it. I'm there. Hit me with an 8 o'clock Friday morning. You can cancel that one. That one's okay. Like, but yeah. I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I think Dr. Strange is the teacher among them. I don't know.
Yeah.
Tudisco. So give Ryan some choices.
Oh, geez.
All right, Ryan. So
I liked going last time. That was way easier.
all right. So here's what we got. You ready? We have Looney Tunes. We have The Matrix. And we have famous Chris's.
I'm going to go I think the first two are actually probably going to be better, but I'm just so curious. Hit me with the famous Chris's, and
all right.
I have no idea where that's going to go. So give me that one.
So here are your three. All right. One has to be your admin, one's your colleague, and one's a student in your class. Chris Rock, Chris Pratt, Chrissy Teigen.
Chrissy Teigen. She's
Who's
the
that last one?
She's like a social media. Was she an actress?
Yeah.
Or model?
Yeah, she was like a supermodel.
She's a model,
and
right? Yeah.
she's married
Now
to
she's just like a
John Legend.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. No. When you
Just
said
not
it,
all
I
that
wasn't sure.
trouble.
I'm like, wait, I know who that is. Oh, geez. So Chris Rock, Chris Pratt, Chrissy Teigen. I think that's tricky. I think I want Chris Rock to be the principal again, just because he's very direct and he's pretty clear. Like, you listen to like when he does stand up, when it's not just the one-off jokes, like when he actually puts together sort of a real monologue. He's a guy who knows what he wants to say and why he wants to say it. And I think that's appreciated in the leadership position. Chris Pratt and Chrissy
Chris Rock, because they're messing around, they're going to be terrified.
Yeah, I don't know, or they're gonna laugh hysterically. But either way, like they're out of my room for a minute, we can reset. Yeah, I don't know. The other two are almost interchangeable. I don't know enough about either one of them's personalities. I'm gonna take Chris Pratt as the fellow teacher. Just the little bit I've seen of him, he seems friendly and whatever, and I can ignore it. And Chrissy Teigen seems pretty outspoken, right? And
Yes.
so I like students that speak up. But who are still sort of open and friendly about it. And again, very limited sample size, but she seems like a person who would be open to a conversation and willing to participate in it. So I think I would take her as the student and Chris, but maybe flip those, but I'm pretty sure Chris Rock needs to be the principal in this one.
Okay. Does anyone else want to chime in on those, or do we want to give Sandrine her own one that wasn't that was unique to Disco?
Sure.
Looney Tunes.
Looney Tunes. All right, Sandrine.
In
I was
knowing
really-
of Matrix.
I was really tempted with that one, but I thought the Chris's is curious,
Then I'm glad you went with the Chris's, because I was like, I don't know where that's going, and I'm horrible
With
with
Chrissy
names.
Teigen in your class, you just have to worry about the cyberbullying. But all right, so here are your Looney Tunes characters. Ready? Bugs Bunny, Daffy, and Elmer Fudd.
Oh, jeez. Okay. Bugs Bunny is a smartass.
Yes.
Daffy Duck can't make up his mind.
He's already a principal.
And Elmer Fudd.
And I'd like just to see how that goes. So that'll leave me as Elmer Fudd as my student, and that's okay because Elmer Fudd he
tries. He really tries.
He has good intentions. He's not, the brightest bulb in the thing, but I think if you give Elmer love and attention, that he will be, what you need as
show some growth.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we got to get the gun away from him because we don't want Elmer Fudd with that. So once you've got that issue gone, and honestly, as long as Elmer isn't in a class with bugs, I think he will be fine. It's mostly bugs.
He does not handle bullying very well.
No,
isn't that most classes though, right? Like, you could take your most problematic student, and if you could switch one other kid in the room, that kid is less problematic. Like it's almost always a pairing issue. Like this kid's weird, but he's not bad until this kid's here. So like, if I could keep bugs and whoever apart.
Just make sure Elmer Fudd knows at the end of the year that it's testing season, not summer season.
So guys, Ryan, I know you're coming back much, much later when me and Tudisco will probably be completely whooped. So we love you and thank you. And we need you to get on out so we can make room for people that are going to be in the audio drama. And Toria,
you don't have to tell me twice. We'll see you guys later tonight.
We love you and thank you so much for sacrificing these hours. And we will we'll see you on the Twitter.